Good morning, I'm Mark Allen with Gaper.io, and I'm here today with Marco Lange, the co-founder of Blank Studio. Good morning. It is good morning in your case, Marco, right?
Good morning. Yes, thank you for having us.
Yes, and can you tell everyone what time it is where you are?
It's currently 1:33 a.m. In Hong Kong, where I am temporarily located.
Wow. So can you share a brief background of yourself and your work experience?
Sure. So I've been fortunate to started my career a little bit early. Founded a couple of different companies in the past, and noticed that the part that I enjoyed the most was was growing brands and then scaling them. And as part of that, decided that I wanted to turn that into my full-time job. And so my partner and I launched Blank Studio, and we are an agency that helps startups build brands and scale. I've been fortunate to work for a couple of different businesses such as EY and BMW, but since then mainly focused on startups, and that's sort of where I enjoy spending most of my time.
Very good. So what has been your experience with remote employment, both as a remote employee and employer?
So we started Blank Studio with the idea of being remote from the beginning, simply because our philosophy was we don't want to hire the best person in a 50-mile radius. We want to hire the best person on the globe that we can. And so we started with the idea of remote. We have an office in New York where we do have a base team that comes in, but we made a lot of mistakes at the beginning going remote from the onset. You assume that it's just going to be like an office where you can sort of see what's going on, and it's an entirely different relationship. But over time, we sort of learned where we messed up and how to address those different issues.
Interesting. So what has been your takeaway? It sounds like it's been both, it's been a learning experience.
At the beginning, it was awful. I'll be honest with you. We didn't like it simply because we approached it incorrectly and we had all the wrong ideas as to what it would look like. The takeaway is it's a lot more empowering to some of our individual employees, and it's a lot more of an adult relationship in some extent, because we trust them to do whatever to hit their goals, and we're not on them to be there from 9 to 5. We don't really care. As long as you get the job done by the deadline, it's fine. And so it's a mindset shift at the beginning. But once you get past that, we found that they're a lot happier and generally more efficient, oddly enough.
Yeah, no, I would agree. But it does take a certain mindset or certain type of individual. I don't know if it's someone right out of college, if it's quite right. Would you agree?
Probably not. I think they would benefit from the networking and the office culture as a whole, and learning sort of the ins and outs of do's and don'ts. And once sort of settled, I think remote could work quite well.
Yes. And so what do you think is the future of remote employment, and what do you think could be done differently to make it more effective?
I think if anything, the last few months have shown us that remote is possible, so much so that Twitter has, announced that all their employees are now free to work from from home if they so choose. Square, I think, did the same. Facebook announced that up to 50% of their employees are now allowed to or can choose to work remote. So I think there's a lot of people that are discovering this experiment, if you will, actually works, and that they don't have to continuously come to the office. So I think that over time, we'll see a shift for certain businesses where more and more people will offer remote, not necessarily as a benefit, but as a standard. Mm-hmm. So it's no longer, work from home on a Friday or whatever it is. It's, you can work from home whenever you want. But I think it'll be a gradual shift to some regards, because certain industries are a little bit slower to adopt versus tech, which is a lot more at the forefront of trying new things.
Yeah, I agree. And since I live in the Bay Area, and all three of those companies you just mentioned are in the Bay Area, we have definitely noticed a difference in traffic, right? Even before the lockdown, we noticed the difference. Yeah. So I hope you're right, just from a quality of life standpoint.
That's my one questions. I wonder what's going to happen with larger cities such as San Francisco, New York, LA that have that rely quite a lot on commercial real estate and office space. So I'm curious what's going to happen in that space. What changes will happen because of remote and the transition to remote working space.
Yeah, I agree. I have some friends in the commercial real estate business, and they're definitely wondering what's going to happen, because it's a very, thriving industry here. And I still think there's going to be offices. So, but I think it's going to be different. I think it's going to be a hybrid model.
Agreed. I think everyone will sort of have, I mean, even I think Shopify just announced that they're going remote as well. And I think you're going to see some sort of different types of hybrid models where some onboarding will happen at regional offices, and you'll still have the option, I guess, to come into work and it'll look more like a co-working space in some regards. So it'll be a bit of a hybrid model, and larger meetings with clients and things like that will probably still happen in person because it's hard to close it. Or at the moment, it's a little harder to close a $20 million deal through Zoom.
Yeah.
And you still need that in person, interaction. And so offices will still be around. I just think at a smaller scale.
Yeah, I agree with you. So what is the story behind Blank Studio and what's the journey been like?
So the story is my partner and I like building brands, and we wanted to help and scaling them, and we wanted to help other founders do the same thing. And the journey has been interesting. I mean, as any startup founder knows, I think Elon Musk said it great, or his friend said it great. It's sort of like eating glass and staring into an abyss. And it is sometimes lonely. And I think remote may play a little bit of role in that as well, because you are to some extent alone in a room through, Zoom, rather than hanging out at the water cooler, if you will. But I think the journey overall has been great. And I think the fact that we started with remote was probably one of our competitive advantages, because we don't have to hire regionally, but we can hire globally. And it's not globally in the sense of we're outsourcing work, but they're full-time employees that, we've trusted, and they are the best at what they do. We're just not locked to, one region. We can get the best of the best across the globe.
Very good. So, I mean, you incorporated remote from day one, it sounds like, but what lessons do you think you learned from the mistakes you made?
So I would say there's probably 2 or 3 different things that we messed up at the beginning. It's a lot easier to blame your employees than it is to look at yourself and see what processes you're doing wrong. And a lot of the people that we've spoken to, especially those going remote or trying to figure out to go remote, will in some way complain that their employees aren't as efficient or something along those lines, to put it mildly. And to me, that doesn't really make sense, because I mean, we made that mistake initially as well, but you have to sort of realize that it's no longer working like you would in an office. It's a matter of extending a little bit more trust and putting systems and processes in place that actually help you enable working remotely. So we use different tools such as, Notion as our main base for something, for a lot of our, tracking of projects, notes, everything is sort of in Notion at this point, simply because it's really easy and it's sort of built for remote to some extent. And then Slack and Zoom, so a combo of all 3. So you have to have the right mindset and you have to have the right tools. And then the last thing is you need the right partners to help you go remote, is what I would say. Simply because they are to some extent the experts, and they know how to hire for remote in some regards, and they know how to enable remote teams to work effectively. And I wouldn't say to shy away from talking to them, because they usually have been through this challenge, and they can help you in that regard a lot better than others might be able to.
Well, yeah, I mean, that leads really into the final question, where there are companies like Gaper that actually, that's the service we provide. I personally have managed teams in 3 different continents, so for probably over 15, 20 years now. So how important do you think stuff like that will be going forward, where the companies like Gaper to help you grow, especially when it comes to hiring the proper engineers and the proper technical people?
I think it'll play quite a big role. One thing about going remote is that since you are hiring from a more global perspective, you'll find that you're getting a lot more applicants that are less qualified for the job, and weeding those out to hire the ones that are more what you're looking for, let's say, and have the qualities and expertise that you're looking for. I think a service such as the one that you're offering is quite vital, and I think that's something that most people should consider when going remote, simply because, like I said, so for example, I'll give you a story. When we went remote first, we were looking for something as simple as a graphic designer, and it's something that a lot of people can do, but not many people can do really, really well, right? And in our case, an agency is only as good as its team and its talent. And so for us, it's important that we hire someone that's decent, and not decent, sorry, but fantastic. And so when we first put out the position, you get thousands of people applying from all over the world that say, I'm a great graphic designer. And, you look at their portfolio and it's pretty not what we're looking for. So filtering all that out takes time, getting through all that until you find the right people. You're going to spend a lot more time wasting time in interviews just to, oh, the resume looks good, the portfolio looks good, only to find out that it's not really theirs, or that, it's not the right fit. And so having, a platform such as, or a service such as yours, can be really beneficial to finding the right people from the onset that are actually interested in remote, because I do believe there's an aspect of every, colleague or employee that you work with that has to have the right mindset to want to work remote. And it can't be they want to work remote so they can go work from their pool, which we have come across. It has to be the right people that are actually interested and being efficient. They just prefer and are more efficient working from home. So I think as we transition to a more remote work culture, you'll see that those that are sort of abusing it to some extent get left behind, and those that are not sort of can excel. And I think that's where you guys sort of step in and you help weed out those initially. But what would you say? I mean, do you guys use your own platform to some extent?
Yeah, we do. And we also, we actually do hire the top 1%. We have ways to find them. We actually do hackathons. Recently, the last one we did, we had 2,000 people take part and we made offers to 20. So it's 1%. And then once they pass the basic technical challenge, now there's another aspect of what you just talked about. Can you really work from home? So, and it's interesting. The other thing I think is, the thing you talked about, people that, don't really do things for different reasons. I think that's true in the office.
That's true.
But you just find out quicker in the office.
Yes.
When they're remote, there's little tricks people can do. Like I always say, if they spent more time just doing their job instead of trying to make it look like they're doing their job, right?
Yeah.
They'd be much more efficient.
No, that's very true. I think that's, you're always every business is at some point going to hire someone that was a mistake to some extent. And I think that in an office space, unless they're really good at playing politics, if it's a larger firm, or if they're really good at hiding it, they can get through it. But with remote, there's only so much you can hide behind, simply because everyone is remote, and to some extent at the beginning, you don't really know that many people. And so it's a lot harder to blame others than it is to sort of critique yourself and say, hey, this is my fault. So I think that is something that, interestingly enough, we've experienced, and we can see. So now when we hire, we sort of know a little bit better of what to look for in a person, so that we're not hiring the person that's just going to go hang out by the pool and, not be as efficient as someone that we're actually looking for. And so I think it's going to be a larger shift. It's not just going to be one. I don't think it's going to happen that quickly. I think what we're going through right now with the pandemic has accelerated remote work. But I think for a lot of the individual businesses, it's just going to take a little bit of a longer transition, simply because the mindset isn't there.
Right. And I think once everything opens up again, people are going to want to go back because they've missed that, one-on-one for so long. But then I think actually, assuming everything gets back to normal before school starts, I think that's when you'll see the difference. If kids go back to school and then people will be like, oh, that was the one thing I didn't like about working from home, was I was also a teacher.
Yes. I think you're right. So Hong Kong, for example, we're very fortunate that, and people will probably, Hong Kong is not, up until a few days ago or up until recently, wasn't part of China officially, right? It's the two countries, two system, one country approach. So I say that only to clarify why I believe in some of the numbers that we're seeing out of the Hong Kong government. So we've only had about 1,200 cases of corona in the entire city-state of 7 million people. And, Hong Kong went down into lockdown early simply because we saw it happen with SARS, which was very deadly for Hong Kong. So they have their systems in place. So for example, the building I'm in right now, there was a case, and within 6 hours, the entire building was, scrubbed clean. Everything was taken care of. The patients were taken to, the patient with COVID was taken to a COVID hospital. Those that were surrounded by them, whether living in this individual unit or had some sort of exposure to them, were taken to specialized quarantine facilities. And the only reason I make that clarification again is we had lockdown where we did remote work for a while. but now everything is open again because we haven't had a case in something like a local case in something like 24 to 30 days or something like that.
Oh, wow.
And so people are actually going back to the office, but you're hearing in conversations that people are saying, I actually miss working from home to some extent, and I find myself being less productive.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, people think that what we're going through right now is sort of remote work, but it's really everyone's stuck in an apartment or house or wherever they're working from. And that's not really remote work, right? That's sort of being stuck somewhere. But remote work will still give you that one-on-one interaction when you go hang out with a beer with your friends, or you go play a round of golf or whatever it is. So you'll still have that human interaction. And so I think as we sort of transition more to normal life, and I'm using Hong Kong as an example where we're seeing that people are more inclined to actually say, hey, I want to continue working from home, but we still had the option to go out when we wanted to, go for a run, go hang out with a friend for a beer or whatever it is. And so I think that once that mindset shift happens, you'll see remote just get adopted a lot more. And it's no longer just, oh, I'm stuck at home, sort of the negative side of things, but it's working from home with the ability to, still socialize, and we're no longer stuck in shoeboxes.
Yes. We're working from anywhere you choose. I mean,
exactly.
I've done it before where I've got a lot of really reading, and I'll actually go to the local library, right?
Yeah.
Or very rarely will I go to a Starbucks to work. But
Starbucks aren't conducive to working, yes.
Yeah, they're not. They're good for frappuccinos, but on a hot day, but that's about it.
I agree. But I think you're right. I think remote doesn't necessarily mean home. It can be anywhere, right?
Yeah.
And I think we started seeing that movement happen over the last few years with digital nomads, as much as I use that term loosely. You're starting to see that people with certain expertise are choosing to, I can get paid the same amount, but I can go live in a country that's cheaper, have a better quality of life or whatever it is, but still, work on really enticing projects and cool stuff. So I think, you'll still find the top 1% talent. They might just not be in SF and New York anymore. They might be sitting on a beach in Bali.
Right. Yeah. Or there's lots of really good, engineers all over, the middle part of the US and all over the world.
Yep, absolutely. The middle part of the US is often overlooked, but you're right. There's a lot of great engineers and a lot of great talent there.
Yes, there are. So, well, Marco, this has been fascinating. I want to thank you for your time today, or this morning in your case. And I wish you luck.
Thank you. Thanks for having us, and all the best.
Thanks. Have a great day.
You too. Bye.